Next, our guest from Washington, D.C., says the White House is playing politics with immigration reform. Imagine that. We're joined by Congressman Bilbray. He's a Republican from California. He's one of the foremost voices in Congress on the issue of illegal immigration, as well as Mexican drug cartel violence. Joining us now. Congressman, great to have you back with us.
Lou, it's an honor, as always.
You know, I was just talking to our guest there from Melbourne, Florida, and you probably, I don't know if you had a chance to hear him, but his voice, like so many voices right now, so disgusted with this political system that they cannot see straight. You got any voice of hope for him?
Well, I guess, I think we all were frustrated with both sides of the aisle of playing games with our national security on certain things and the struggle over just enforcing our immigration laws. People just say it should be so simple because, this is one of those issues where you really do realize that it isn't a real complicated issue, that if the people in Washington really wanted just to enforce the immigration laws, it doesn't take brain surgery to do it. It's not like trying to figure out health care, try to figure out how to win wars. It's just common sense stuff like, let's just make sure every employer checks on the computer that somebody's name and Social Security number matches. I went in yesterday into the congressional office where they check all new hirees, and it took less than 5 minutes for them to show me how it's done and to explain all the details. 5 minutes. That's the kind of thing people are just outraged. Why in the world would we not only be, requiring that this be done, but at least require that anybody who wants to have a government contract does this, so we make sure our tax dollars isn't.
Well, that's been delayed again by the Obama administration. There's been no protests from Congress. A few people have spoken out. You have. But there's, Congress is going along with what is going to be the destruction of, without any question, of E-Verify. That's what this administration intends. It's what the Democratic leadership of Congress intends, and the Democratic leadership of the Senate and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce mean to accomplish.
Well, Lou, everybody who voted for the so-called stimulus package has to answer, why in the world would you take E-Verify out of the so-called stimulus package unless you want to make sure you stimulate illegal immigration rather than stimulate jobs for legal Americans and legal residents? To take the verification part out of the stimulus package to make sure that, especially at these times, that you're using taxpayers' money to help create jobs and opportunity for legal immigrants. Why would you remove it unless it is the most cynical game playing that people are just fed up with Washington about?
Now, you're talking to the audience, to my audience. You know how smart they are. You're willing to say to them today that that's not what the intent is of the Obama administration and the Democratic leadership, and that is cynically and to play that game and to kill E-Verify, period?
I think it is to use E-Verify as some kind of bait-and-switch game to try to get amnesty through, that they're going to try to move the most extreme agenda for the pro-illegal immigration group, and by using the most moderate, most common sense agenda for controlling our borders, to use that as some kind of political ploy for the most extreme agenda, just to me really just reinforces everything negative people think about Washington, D.C. How could you not, support the bipartisan effort for E-Verify? You see Heath Shuler, you see Democrats, Republicans who are fair-minded saying, look, this is the one place we can agree on. This isn't anti-immigrant. All this is looking at making sure that no one's Social Security number has been stolen by an illegal and used in another country. This is just to make sure that a felony isn't going to be committed whenever you employ somebody, and to use that as some kind of, poker chip for amnesty, to me, is just really why people are just fed up with Washington, D.C.
They're fed up and they're disappointed. You mentioned Heath Shuler. I haven't heard from Congressman Shuler in a very long time. The president continues to push back E-Verify. There has been no new initiatives to secure the borders. The only discussion about the war on drugs and the amount of drugs crossing that border, which Mexico remains the principal source of methamphetamines, heroin, cocaine, marijuana, all of those drugs. And yet the only discussion is stopping U.S. gun sales into Mexico. I mean, this is how upside down and stupid, obviously, this administration and this federal government think the American people are.
Well, what's sort of interesting is that they praise Mexico for finally recognizing how out of control the border is and bringing their troops to the Mexican side of the border. But they will ostracize and attack any American who proposes that we do the same, that we recognize how bad it is. You can't even discuss authorizing the president to put the troops to the border to help stop all the violence, as Mexico has been doing for over a decade. And that's that double standard, because in reality, they really don't want it controlled. They want to play on these crises, want to use these crises for other examples. And I sadly say that if I got to say one thing, the chief of staff of the president probably said it in the words will drive the Americans crazy. Let no crisis go unexploited instead of let no crisis go unsolved. It's strictly the cynical agendas, and I'm telling you, I saw it on immigration. I'm seeing it, what's happening with this climate change issue, where the greatest environmental threat is going to be all the smoke coming from the backroom deals made with special interest groups. It just really bothers me to come back to Washington and see this same old games under a different title, and this isn't the kind of change that the American people were promised. This is not what they were told.
Let me ask you this. The president has again delayed the meeting on so-called comprehensive immigration reform. When do you expect that meeting to actually take place?
I wouldn't know, because, frankly, as chairman of the Immigration Reform Caucus, I wasn't notified. And then I checked with the ranking member on the full committee, Lamar Smith, and the ranking member on the subcommittee of immigration, Steve King. They weren't notified of any meeting either. So this so-called bipartisan meeting, I'm very interested to see who is invited and what is the real agenda here. Is this just like-minded people to conspire on a new amnesty proposal, or is this truly an effort to be bipartisan to try to get people to get together?
Let me give you the answer and just short-circuit it. The answer is, are you kidding? There is no way. And by the way, do you remember all the discussion in the campaign in 2008 about the era of post-partisanship?
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't heard so much of that, have we?
Not much. In fact, it has gotten to the point to where when you've got a war supplemental bill like we're seeing today, with all kinds of stuff thrown in, that you don't even allow now for the other party to introduce an alternative. That has been stricken and can't be allowed unless you give it to them for days ahead of time and everything else.
You guys better get mad sooner rather than later if you're going to expect to have any kind of balanced government, because right now, as I've said earlier this hour, this is all throttle and no brake. So, Congressman, we're going to have to jump here. I've got a break coming up, but I really, as always, appreciate you being here and good talking with you.
Thank you very much, and keep at it. And your listeners are really the backbone of the ability to finally keep these people's feet to the fire, and don't think that that American people are sleeping when it comes to this immigration issue.
Congressman Brian Bilbray, thanks for being here.